is going to be the first overall pick for fantasy football 2025? In this video, at the end of the video, I'm going to reveal who that is, and also who are the candidates who could potentially be the first overall, because not just any one player. Is it going to be particularly a running back? Is it going to be a wide receiver? Could a quarterback be a first overall pick? Probably not. We're going to narrow down the actual candidates and come to an actual verdict and a winner here on this show. Fantasy football is never too early to get into it. So we are rolling out the 2025 content. If you're new to the channel, you got to know what to do, and that's smashing it, tapping it, slapping it. Hit the thumbs up and drop a comment below. We always want to be interactive here on the #1 fantasy football podcast. We want to get your feedback below. Who should be the first overall pick for fantasy football 2025? And does it really matter? I mean, we saw a lot of players bust this past season. Tyreek Hill was a top pick. CMC, which I warned you, the only channel warning you not to draft CMC, and because copying and pasting doesn't help you win. So we're going to think outside the box on this episode, have a lot of fun here, but I want you guys to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, turn on the bell. I know there's a lot of call to actions, but really consider subscribing because this is going to help you win. And in the comments below, drop it. Hit the thumbs up, drop a comment below, okay? So let's dive right into it. I want to, before I get into this, pull up a list here. I'm going to pull up a little thumbnail here. There was a mock draft that was done by the Consheepsis. Not going to shout out who the Consheepsis are here. And they did a mock draft on who they think is going to be the first overall pick. So I want to just go through this with you. It's a mock draft. It's a way too early mock draft. And what's funny about this, if you look at it here, I'm going to move over here so I can pull it up. Jamar Chase, Jefferson, Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, Saquon, Puka, Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, James Cook, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Nico Collins are your first round picks. Now, I typically do 1 point PPR, 12-person league. So this is kind of ideal in regards to how many people are going to be in a league. But I want to just break this down and talk about this a little bit because you always want to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where the puck currently is. And this is what I teach on this channel that nobody else is teaching. But I want you guys to let me know what you think of this mock draft here. There's a couple prime candidates that could be a first overall pick, that is, and even a first round pick for that matter. But I want to highlight a couple of things. Jamar Chase, which we're going to get to when I pull up wide receivers here, when we talk about candidates that could be first overall. Jamar Chase had a pinnacle year. We're going to go over his numbers. Jefferson, viable. He has a good year. Bijan, tons of volume. We're going to talk about it. CeeDee Lamb, I see that. Saquon, Puka, we got the decline of Cooper Kupp. So a couple of these guys I see, but I got a question here. Where's Tyreek Hill, your golden boy? This is your golden boy. Where is Christian McCaffrey? You guys were on your knees on these guys, on your knees doing deeds for these guys. The mainstream consensus says, why aren't you loving them? Every magazine, every website, every podcast. There's not one podcast except this podcast that specifically said, don't draft CMC. The only ones that don't draft CMC, everybody else was loving him, on their knees for this guy, okay? And all of a sudden, I see my guy here, Brian Thomas Jr., at the 1.7. I mean, this was a guy that I was telling you guys last year to draft him because you can go running back early and they get tons of value at wide receiver later. Yet now Brian Thomas Jr. is your golden boy. You love him all of a sudden. Why weren't you telling people to draft him? You were telling everybody to draft Deebo Samuel. In fact, the mainstream consensus had Christian Kirk ranked ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. Now you're telling me you love Brian Thomas Jr. when I was already calling this? You guys should be ashamed of yourself. This is why you guys got to subscribe to the channel, the only channel giving you the truth. These guys all lie to you. They don't want you to win your league. I'm getting testimonials like crazy. My DM is inundated with success stories. I won my league. Thank you, Joe. I have Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey. Who should I keep? Because we're already there. When Laporta had his breakout year, we were already there, right? The year he was coming off in the 10th round 2 years ago, we were already there. We got him. That was our tight end one because we're always thinking ahead. Now everybody's going to be riding the players that they have now. So let's pull up some candidates here. And again, at the end, I'm going to give you guys the verdict on who I think is the first overall. Again, drop your comments, but I want to see who you guys think should be the first overall. So I'm going to pull this up here. We're going to take a look at running back. So I'm not even going to put up quarterbacks here because there's tons of depth at quarterback, and a quarterback typically doesn't come off first overall unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, which again, I think Josh Allen is a great candidate for a first overall pick. I think that a lot of other guys are going to be good this year. Guys like Jaden Daniels are going to be good. Other guys, but I want to focus on who could actually be. We're talking 1-quarterback league, PPR, 12 person, and it's not going to be a quarterback. Okay. So here's your candidates here. And these are the guys that finished on top last year. Okay. So let's talk about them. Saquon Barkley coming off this astronomical pinnacle year. Is it going to be viable? I don't think he's ever going to get, first of all, I don't think Saquon's ever going to get to this mark of 2,000 yards ever again. That's why I was so angry with him for not playing week 18. I'm like, dude, you got to play. You got to play. Like, you're going to be remembered. Like, the only reason we're talking about Eric Dickerson and your record is because Eric Dickerson literally like broke the record for most rushing yards by a running back with 2,105. Never been broken since. Did it in 16 games. Now there was this discrepancy of like this caveat, like, oh, well, if Saquon does it, he's going to do it in 17 games. Doesn't matter because we're talking on the season and he still would have had he played and could have broke it. If he had 100 yards in the last game against the Giants, which he easily could have done week 18, he would break that record and be mentioned. So I'm recording this, as we head into week 18, and the news is that he's not going to play, which is absolute BS. So I don't know, unless they pull an audible and he ends up playing, which I don't think he will. The word is he's not going to play. But anyway, going to the first overall pick, back to stay on topic here. He's never going to do this again. Okay. Jahmyr Gibbs, if Montgomery continues to get hurt, and even if he doesn't, Gibbs is putting up amazing numbers because he just does so much with so little, right? Even though that volume is distributed half and half, he still does well. Now, if you are getting Gibbs, you got to deal with that Montgomery factor, which is annoying, which kind of pushes Gibbs out of that. I mean, this is easily the first overall pick if there was no Montgomery, okay? Other guys here I want to talk about, Byjet, amazing. I'm really shocked that Josh Jacobs, and if you look at every metric other than touchdowns, Byjet outperformed Josh Jacobs. More rushing yards by 1, more yards per carry, touchdowns, they go to Josh Jacobs. But, with receiving receptions, we had Byjan at 59 receptions compared to Jacobs, who had 35 receptions, more receiving yards for Byjan. So, the thing is that what I'm really leaning towards Byjan being first overall when you're looking at the 2025 fantasy football rankings is that they really started to phase out Algier. Like it became the Byjan show. And if I filter here by attempts, I really like the volume. He was 5th in attempts. That's something I really look at when I'm looking at a guy, first overall. Kyren, I mean, completely underrated here. 316 attempts, pretty phenomenal. Barring any injury, he's just amazing. He's a great player, continues to do well. Taylor, I think he's going to decline. So that's just based on attempts. When I filter back my fantasy points, Saquon gives Byjan, Henry, Achane, Jacobs, Kyren. There's a couple other guys I think that can emerge next year. I think Breece Hall has a better year next year, right? But first overall, it's a little bit steep based on where he finished here. As you can see, that this is filtered by PPR running backs, and it's basically after 17 weeks, not including the week 18, okay? Just so you know. So this could fluctuate and change a little bit. But when I'm looking at it, I just don't see Saquon. Again, we talk about running backs' pinnacle years. The last time a running back had 2 years in a row when he finished on top was Priest Holmes. 2002, 2003, no running back has ever done it back-to-back, finishing on top. So I always factor that in when I'm looking at who to grab. And we got to factor in a natural regression for Saquon. So who's going to emerge? Those are the questions I ask. And everybody was just, I asked these questions last year, everyone's just still drafting CMC. So those are your front runners for first overall. Again, we're going to exclude quarterbacks. I just don't think that's, you're not going to get a quarterback first of all. That's a 2-quarterback league. Take a quick glance at wide receiver here, because a lot of people like wide receiver, but I'm still of the mindset that you just don't need to get a wide receiver first overall. I even in the first round, we saw that last year, right? With Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey here, as you can see, finishing 12th. Again, this is only 17 weeks, right? So, man, there's just so many other guys that could come back, like Puka Nacua. As long as Cup's out, they phase him out, right? Like Puka Nacua could come. He only played 11 games, right? He could be in the first round, bounce back. Nico Collins, right? That's why I guess that he's gonna probably be a first rounder, right? So they've kind of factored that in. The Chiefs. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know. They need a quarterback change, right? But you can see Jamar Chase. Also, I looked at Jamar Chase's numbers. I mean, this is his pinnacle year. He's never had a 1,612 yard, 16 touchdown season. He kind of came close in his rookie season, but this was an astronomical pinnacle year for him. So I'm factoring in a regression for him. Justin Jefferson could continue, stay consistent. He has been. Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas Jr. takes a step up, I think. Malik Neighbors. I mean, they got to figure out what's going on quarterback, if he's fed properly. Jackson Smith could step up, because I guess we're phasing out the other guys there, lock in whoever's there, Metcalf. JSN has really stepped up. Terry McLaurin, I mean, I don't think he's a phenomenal player, but quarterbacks make wide receivers, and we saw Daniels make him really well, do him really well. McConkey, I think, takes a step up this year. So tons of potential. I think A.J. Brown, you can see he finished 16th. He's going to take a step up. Could Tyreek have a last hurrah, right? So there's a ton of options at wide receiver you get later if these guys are devalued based on copy and paste, right? Pickens, there's a couple other guys, right? Rookies that are going to come in depending on their landing spot, right? So, but the main focus of this video is who do we draft first overall if we had to choose. Again, I want your comments, but I'm going to tell you guys right now who that is. But before I do, guys, I want you guys to head over to our partners here, mybookie.ag. This is a site I use, a site I trust. Mybookie.ag, use code FFC. You get a 50% match deposit. I'm telling you guys, now that fantasy's over, or if you just want to get in, if you watch other sports, UFC, whatever, this is going to enhance your game watching experience. Use the code FFC, create an account, mybookie.ag. Go there right now, 50% match deposit, and get in on the action. It makes the game that much more better. That much better. I'm talking funny here. That much better. Head on over there right now. Use code FFC, create an account, and enjoy the experience. That's the site I use, mybookie.ag. Go. What are you waiting for? Run. Don't walk. Head on over there. Okay, guys? Go check them out. Check them out. Go create an account. Have some fun. Put a deposit down. Okay? All right, let's go. Let's continue here. So who is going to be the first overall pick? We talked about it. We talked about, Jamar Chase, Jefferson, Brian Thomas Jr. We talked about those running backs. This is my humble opinion, researched opinion. Again, I'm thinking outside the box. It is very early. This is being recorded in January 3rd to be exact. So again, this is going to change. It's very early. We are still finishing the season. God forbid, in the playoffs, there's injury to some of these guys. So we don't know. But the way that it sits right now, January 3rd, we still got week 18 to go. Some of the guys are going to be sat, predicated on their, playoff implications. That I think everybody should play regardless. I think it's still going to be Bijan. Okay? I still think he's getting better. I still think he's the most dynamic, aside from Jahmyr Gibbs. But Jahmyr Gibbs has more competition, right? Montgomery's always going to eat. Unless Montgomery gets hurt, which again, that's viable. It happened in, he always gets hurt. He always misses some time. But the way that it says, Bijan Robinson still, as of right now, my opinion, is the first overall pick. Now, Saquon could still have a good year next year, but not to this level. He just had such a good year. It's going to be very hard to top. Jahmyr Gibbs has the competition. Bijan, I think Breece Hall takes a step up, but he's going to be more value just based on where he finished. So you don't have to pay a first overall pick. Get him probably in the second round, right? There's other guys that are going to emerge. Ashton Genty, right? Depends on where he lands, right? Genty, other rookies that are coming in, I got to see where they land. Maybe James Conner gets hurt in the offseason and Trey Benson takes a step up. Still not worth a first overall pick, right? So you got to take a look at what's happening, what's emerging, what's moving, what's shaking. But as of right now, it's still very early. I had Bijan the past couple of years, my first overall. I'm going to continue on with that trend because he still hasn't finished as the top running back in fantasy. I still think he was developing. I still think there was bad coaching. I still think they were implementing Algier more than they thought. And I think this year they take a step up. They got to figure out their quarterback situation. They got a lot of work to do. They got to improve their O-line. The Falcons have a lot of moves to make, but again, it depends on what they're doing with the O-line, quarterbacks, all that stuff. But as of right now, it's got to be Bijan. Just based on talent, volume, opportunity, and durability, which is huge, which is something that he has shown, which other running backs have not shown. They either miss time, like Jonathan Taylor's of the world and stuff like that, who always miss time, that scare me to draft in the first round. I don't get scared of a lot of things. So that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Just want to have some fun here, talking some early rankings, showing you some mock draft stuff by the Kid Sheepses, and telling you just not to listen. So if you're new to the channel, smash the tap and hit the thumbs up, drop a comment below. Who's first overall for Fantasy Football 2025? Very early rankings here, guys. Very early discussion. Just hoping you guys just enjoying this content, having fun, okay? I'm going to keep the content rolling for you. Go visit our partner again, and yeah, we'll talk soon. If you want my picks, get them below. Counselor's Edge, I've linked them below. All right, guys? Let's win together all the time. Line mentality. You can see it here. Smash it, tap it, slap it. Get your shirts as well at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Have yourself a great day. I'll keep the content rolling. We go year round. Talk soon. I'm out.